Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Before we start today's yin class, I invite you to take this opportunity to grab any props that you have available to you. I'm using a bolster, 2 blocks, and a couple of blankets, but if you don't have a bolster, you can grab 2 or 3 bed pillows, maybe even a cushion from your couch. And if you don't have blocks, just grab some extra blankets or maybe a couple of smaller pillows. So feel free to hit the pause button and grab your props. And if you don't have any props, that is perfectly fine. You can still do the class, and I'll just make sure to offer different options and alternatives. But when you have your props, just go ahead and meet me on your mat. For our first pose, we will start on our back in reclining butterfly. So once you lay down, you'll place the soles of your feet together and let your knees come apart. Feel free to take a blanket underneath your head to support your neck if it is needed. And there are many different ways you can prop yourself up here. You can place a block, rolled up towel, or a pillow underneath each thigh if your inner thighs are a little bit sensitive to this shape. Or if you're not using props there and you want a little bit more, you can take a block or a cushion or bolster and place it underneath your feet so your legs are a little bit more elevated and your knees have more space to gravitate down towards. And position your arms in any way that feels comfortable. So you can have your arms by your sides, out to a T, maybe even goalpost your arms. And once you find the shape that suits you today in this moment, allow yourself to drop in, maybe close your eyes, and start to come into your breathing. And just take slow breaths in and out through your nose. And yin is all about observing and noticing. So start with your breath. Start with that breath that's naturally coming in and naturally coming out. Notice if the breath has a texture, a temperature. Notice if you feel the breath in a place more prominently in your body. And once you've had an opportunity to notice your breath, start to notice your body. Notice where your body is at today. One of the things about yin is every time that we come to our mat, we're coming in with different stuff. We're coming in at different points in our life, and different points in our day and our week. And it's not always the same because in between our time on the mat, when we're off, things are happening that are affecting our body, and we may be holding on to things. And so not every time that we come to our mat, it's going to feel the same. So just notice and observe how you feel today. There are no right or wrong answers in yin. There's only sensation. We have about another minute left in this pose. So in the yin tradition, we traditionally hold postures anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. Most of the poses that we will hold today are about 3. So just for these next few breaths, just allow yourself to soften, maybe 5 or even 10% more. And just give yourself that permission to. Wherever you are, take a slow, deep breath in, and then sigh it out through your mouth. Using your hands, slowly draw your knees together. And with your knees bent, scoot your feet to the outer edges of your mat and let your knees fall into each other. So every long hold, we will follow it by a rebound or a constructive rest. And it's just an opportunity for you to not only release the previous shape, but also continue to observe how your body responds to letting go of it. Our body communicates to us in sensation, so just notice what sensations arise when you release a pose. It is just as important as what you felt while you were in the posture. And when you are ready, draw your knees into your chest and give yourself a hug. And roll to one side or the other, and press yourself up and find a seat. Our next pose is half dragonfly. So take your legs out to a wide V. And if taking your legs out into this position, you find that your back is rounding a little bit, go ahead and take a blanket or two, or maybe a pillow, and stack it underneath your hips so your hips are slightly elevated off of the floor. Bend your right knee and place your right foot by your pelvis. And if your left knee is a little bit sensitive or you have some tight hamstrings today, take a rolled up towel or blanket and place it underneath your left knee. Once you have those props set up, walk your hands forward and allow yourself to fold towards the middle. You can round your back or keep a flat back. It's up to what feels best for your low back here. And a block can be stacked underneath each elbow, or you can stack blocks to rest your forehead on. You can even create a table with your blocks and your bolster, and just let yourself rest on that. Now, if you find folding forward is a little bit too much for your hips or your back, you can either sit upright, maybe you're getting some sensation there, or another alternative is to come to your back again, draw your left knee into your chest, let your right leg go long to the front, and then take your left knee out to the side so you're getting that inner thigh stretch through your left leg. Once you found your position, allow yourself to drop in. Come into your breath and start to observe. So one of the things that makes yin so unique compared to traditional hatha yoga classes is that we're not working with traditional alignment points and we're not working with specific actions to achieve a specific sensation. Rather, we allow ourselves to come into the shape as we are, honoring our body, our individual and unique bone structures, our musculature, any injuries or stress that we're holding on to. We're letting ourselves bring to the table that for ourselves. And by coming into the shape and honoring our body, we then let our body respond in its own unique way. So what you may be experiencing in this posture right now may be different from someone else. And especially when we get to working on both sides of a pose could feel different. So just let yourself continue to observe. Your foot here doesn't have to necessarily be flexed. You can allow that foot to be pointed or flexed, or maybe somewhere in between. Your foot can turn out or maybe slightly turn in. And if you need to take a bigger bend in your knee, feel free to do that. Stack more blankets, maybe even place a thicker pillow underneath your knee. And remember, it doesn't matter how far you go into the pose, as long as you're feeling sensation that you can continue to observe. And also, as long as you're feeling sensation that allows you to stay with your breath. So we have about another third left. Continue to stay in your pose. If you would like to remove any props and go a little bit further, feel free to do so. Or maybe you back out a little bit. Even though we're holding these poses for a specific amount of time, know that you're not necessarily having to stay in the pose. It's just a light suggestion. Everybody has their own threshold of time, so honor your body, and if at any point in time when we're holding a pose you need to rebound early, allow yourself to do so. And take a deep inhale, and then exhale, sigh it out. If you're folded forward in half dragonfly, go ahead and walk yourself back up. Move any props off to the side, extend your legs out long in front of you, give them a shimmy and shake, or maybe you sit in a cross-legged position, just finding some stillness. If you went to your back for the alternative, just draw both knees into your chest and give yourself a hug. And then we'll move into the other side. So if you're seated, right leg goes out to that half-wide V, left foot in towards your pelvis. Pad up your right knee with a blanket or towel if you need it, and then let yourself fold forward. If you're on your back, left leg goes long, you'll hold onto your right knee with right hand, and then take your right knee out to the side, any amount, or until you start to feel a stretch in your inner thigh. And then when you've set yourself up, use props to support you. Allow yourself to drop in and come into your breath. We're about at the halfway point. Make any adjustments that you need, add props, take props away, or maybe you back out of the pose completely at any point in time. And just continue to focus in on the sensations in your body. Continue to focus in on your breath. And take a deep breath in. And exhale, let it go. And rebound. So if you're seated, go ahead and raise yourself up. And extend your legs out in front of you, give them a shimmy and shake, or maybe just sit in a cross-legged position with stillness. If you're on your back, draw your knee back into your chest. Give yourself a hug with both legs, or maybe set your feet down to the floor for a mini Shavasana. And just take some deep recovery breaths here. And then when you're ready, we'll move on to Tabletop Pose, hands and knees. Feel free to place a blanket underneath your shins with your knees towards the edge, and you can stack as many blankets as you need to pad up your shins. And before we go to the next pose, we'll take a couple of rounds of movement. So taking cat-cow, inhale, drop your belly, let your tail and your heart lift. And then exhale, round your back, chin to chest. And just move through that a few times and allow yourself to find some organic movement. So maybe hips move side to side. You can move your neck around. Whatever feels good here. And after your next cat and cow, we'll take our next posture, which is going to be winged dragon lunge. So step your right foot to the outside of your right hand at the edge of your mat. Left knee can stay, or you can walk your left knee back a little bit. And you can stay on your hands, raise your hands up using blocks, or you can lower yourself down, forearms to the floor or forearms to blocks. Now your right toes can turn out slightly, and you can let your right knee fall away from you if it feels safe for your ankle and knee. Now, if you find that this pose is a little intense, there are several options you can take. So you can come down to your belly, flat on your belly with a blanket underneath your hips. And you can take your right knee out to the side with your right shin parallel to the side of your mat. And you can even elevate your right shin with a couple of stacked blankets or even a bolster or a pillow. This is half frog pose. If you cannot be on your belly, then you can come down to your back, draw your right knee into your chest again, and take the outside edge of your right foot for half happy baby. Left leg can be long, or your left leg can be bent with your foot flat on the floor. So just a couple of other options if dragon lunge is too intense. Or maybe you start in either of the two alternatives and then maybe halfway through make your way to dragon lunge. Now, one of the ways that we can deepen our observing of our body and our breath is noticing if there's any connection between our breath and the body sensations that we're feeling. Often, when we feel bodily sensations, it sends signals throughout our nervous system, and then our nervous system connects with the respiratory system to change the breath pattern. So often we can find that our breathing gives us a gauge of where we are in our nervous system and how our body is just generally feeling in anything, whether it's yoga poses or situations in life. So just notice how your breath may be being affected by the sensations that you're feeling. Is your breath a little bit shorter or maybe shallow, or is the pace being affected because of the sensation that you're feeling in the pose? And when we notice this, we can then work towards flipping the script. So instead of our body changing up our breath pattern, we change the breath pattern in order to signal our nervous system that everything's okay, that we can relax and be soft in the pose. So see here, if for this time you can allow your breath to become a little bit slower, have a little bit more depth, maybe even find a more even and steady rhythm between the inhales and the exhales. And just notice how that feels in your body. And just a few more breaths. If you need to make any adjustments, go a little bit further, back out a little bit, or maybe even come out of the pose completely and rebound. Give yourself that discretion. And take a slow inhale and exhale. Rebound. So if you're in Dragon Lunge, come up onto your hands, step back to Tabletop Pose, take some cat-cows. If you're in that half frog, slide your right leg back to meet your left and just rest on your belly. You can rest with your forehead stacked on top of your hands or rest on one side of your cheek. And if you went to your back, just draw both knees into your chest. Maybe extend both legs long out in front of you and take a mini Shavasana. And then whatever version you did, take it on the other side. So from table, left foot steps to the outside of your left hand. Dragon Lunge. If you are on your belly, slide your left knee out to the side, shin parallel to the floor. You can elevate your shin with a stack of blankets, a pillow, or a bolster. And if you're on your back, you'll draw your left knee to your chest, catch the outside of your left foot for half happy baby. Right leg can be long or right leg can be bent. And even if you did one version on one side, know that you can change it up on the other side, just depending on how the side feels. Again, we're honoring the differences between the sides of our body and working towards finding balance, not necessarily symmetry. And once you find your shape, start to observe your breath, observe the body sensations, and maybe work towards observing the connection between the two. And then lastly, working towards controlling and redirecting the breath to allow the body to relax, become more soft, and become more gentle in the shape that you've chosen. We're about halfway through, so just keep checking in with your body, checking in with your breath, and just making any adjustments as needed. And sometimes the smallest adjustments can make the biggest of difference, so just listen to what your body is telling you and honor it. We'll be here for a few more breaths. If you need to rebound early, invite yourself to do so. If you feel like your body can stay just a few more breaths, then stay. Deep inhale. And exhale. If you're on your elbows, lift up onto your hands and make your way to tabletop if you're in Dragon Lunge. If you are on your belly, Crocodile Pose, both legs extended behind you, forehead resting on your hands at the center of your mat. Or if you're on your back, just take a mini Shavasana and just take a few recovery breaths here. If you are on your back or are on your belly, make your way up to tabletop pose. And our final pose for our target area of inner thighs will be either wide-legged child's pose or frog pose. So to start, bring your big toes to touch, take your knees out wide, and take blankets underneath your knees here to pad them up. And then hips will go to your heels, and then you can either lower down to your elbows or you can let your hands go towards the front of your mat and let your chest bow down in between your legs. If you have pillows or you have a bolster, feel free to take that underneath your torso. And if your hips don't touch your heels all the way, you can close off the space with a rolled up blanket or even a pillow. Now, option 1 is to stay here in child's pose, or you can work towards frog pose. Now, there's many different ways you can do this. Start off by taking your feet as wide as your knees, and your feet can be flexed or toes pointed back. Or you can start to take your knees and feet further apart from each other. And just adjust as needed. So hips can be in line with your knees for a more traditional frog shape, or you can still have your hips further back. And if your shins are on any hard surface, feel free to pad those up with blankets, or you can even turn to face the side of your mat, so that way you have the space of your mat for your knees. And maybe you don't go into frog right away. Maybe you start in wide-legged child's pose and you work up towards that frog. Or maybe you stay in child's pose the entire time. But just let this pose be what you need it to be today. And who knows, maybe the next time that you do this, you'll feel differently and frog may seem a little bit more accessible for you. And as always, feel free to prop yourself up as much as you need. And it's never how far you're going into the pose. It's what sensation arises from the pose. Something about yin is that we're not trying to push past pain, and we're not trying to endure pain. We're trying to find that appropriate edge, that respectful edge that allows us to breathe with discomfort. Observe the discomfort. And then just adjust accordingly. So we'll be here for our last 3-minute hold. We're about halfway through. So we'll continue to either stay where you are or make adjustments. Maybe you're in frog pose and you need to back out into wide-legged child's, or maybe you're in child's pose and you take your feet further apart. Maybe you go into full frog, maybe you don't. Just honoring exactly what your body needs right now in this present moment. Wherever you are, whether you're still in the pose or you've rebounded already, take a deep breath in and sigh it out. So from here, we'll go ahead and rebound. If you are in frog pose, slowly start to scoot your knees and feet back to center. And if you're in wide-legged child's pose, slowly raise yourself up to table. And once everybody's in tabletop, bring your legs together and just start to move your hips from left to right. Just making some side stretches. And then maybe start to move your hips in a circular motion going one direction. And then the other direction. And from here, we will move on to a seat. So sit with your legs extended out in front of you. Feet can be together or they can be a little bit apart. And again, if you need to lift your hips off of the ground to sit a little bit taller, place a blanket or two or a couple of pillows underneath your head. And if you need to support your knees, take a rolled up towel or blanket underneath them. We'll fold forward from here, hinge from your waist, and you can either keep a flat back or round your back forward and let your head drop. And you can place a bolster or a couple of pillows over your legs and maybe a block in between your forehead and those bolsters, or even a couple of blocks underneath your head and the floor. And if folding forward for you today is not optimal, two options. You can either come to your back, take a strap or something similar, lasso your strap onto your right foot, extend your right leg up towards the sky, and let your left leg go forward. And then I'll let you know when we're halfway through and you can switch. Or you can do legs up the wall if you have a wall nearby, just sitting with your hips up against the wall and extending your legs up against that wall. And we'll hold here just for a little bit of time. So for the next couple of poses before Shavasana, we'll hold not as long as we've held the previous poses, just enough to balance out our body. But once you come into the shape, just allow yourself to come into your breath. So we're about halfway through, so if you're doing the one-legged hamstring stretch variation on your back with a strap, go ahead and switch legs. And if you're doing the seated forward fold, and maybe for this last minute you want to remove all the props completely or remove a couple of props and just let yourself fold a little bit further, feel free to do so. And then come back into your breath. Wherever you are, take a deep inhale. And exhale, let it go. And from here, rebound. So if you're in a seated forward fold, lift yourself up. Take a moment just to find some stillness. If you are on your back, release your foot from the strap. Maybe draw both knees into your chest, or you can extend your legs forward with your arms by your side. And if you're in legs up the wall, just draw your knees into your chest and maybe roll to one side or the other before you press yourself up. And take a couple of deep recovery breaths here. And then we will make our way onto our back if you are not already there. Once you are on your back, go ahead and extend your legs long out in front of you and reach your arms towards the back wall. Keeping your hips exactly where they are, walk your feet over to the right bottom corner of your mat. And your legs can be together, or you can stack your left foot on top of your right foot. And if you want to add on the arms, you can grab either your left wrist, give it a gentle tug, or you can even scoot your shoulder blades over to the right. So we're coming into Banana Asana or Banana Pose, a nice lateral stretch for the side body. And different arm variations, you can either hold onto your wrist, you can let each hand grab the opposite elbow, or you can just let your left arm stay up and let your right hand come down by your side. So as we're holding this pose, think about breathing into the entire left side of your body, from your left outer foot all the way to your left fingertips. Think about your left rib cage expanding with each inhale, kind of like the gills of fish when they breathe. Take another inhale and exhale. And then from here, walk your hands, your feet, and your shoulders back to center. Go ahead and draw your left knee in towards your chest. Give it a hug. And take your left arm out to the side. Right hand guides your left leg all the way to the right for a reclining twist. You can support your thigh with a bolster or a block here. And if twisting is not optimal for you today, you can either take Banana Asana again, walking your feet to the right and your hands and shoulders to the right, or you can take that left knee out to the side, over to the left for another inner thigh stretch, and then come into your breath. Take one more inhale. And then on your exhale, take everything back to center. Extend both legs long out in front of you. Let your arms float down by your sides, just taking a mini Shavasana for our rebound. And just noticing how you feel. How does the left side of your body feel after those two poses? And then we'll do everything on the other side. So reach your arms towards the back wall, legs forward. And then walk everything to the left. So feet over to the left, your hands over to the left, or shoulder blades over to the left. You can grab your right wrist, let each hand grab the opposite elbow, or your left arm can just come down by your side with your right arm up. And right foot can stack on top of left foot here. And when you're in your banana pose, just start to breathe as if you could send all of that breath into just the right side of your body. And just really try to feel out that right side of your body as you're breathing. See if you can feel the breath or imagine the breath starting at your right outer edge of your foot all the way up to your ribs and to your armpit and to your right pinky finger. Take one more full breath. And then walk everything back to center. Draw your right knee into your chest. Take it over to the left for a reclining twist. Or if you did banana asana twice on the other side, do it again here. Or you can take your right knee out to the side for that inner thigh stretch if twisting is not necessarily optimal for you today. And then settle into the pose. And even though this is our last pose before we settle into that Shavasana, see if you can be here as if this is the only pose that you had to do for the rest of the day. Try to just let yourself stay present without anticipation. And take one final breath here. Beautiful. Take everything back to center. And draw your knees into your chest, giving yourself a final hug. Maybe you take a happy baby. Maybe you set your feet to the floor and windshield wiper your knees from left to right. But our next pose will be our final rebound pose, our final pose of ease and stillness, Shavasana. So you can take the traditional Shavasana with your legs extended out in front of you and arms by your sides. And feel free to use props to support you. I always like to suggest something underneath your knees, like a bolster or pillow or a rolled up blanket, something underneath your head, and something over your body. You can also do legs up the wall if you have a wall available to you. Or maybe you're doing this in the morning time and you would like to take a seated meditation before you start your day. But just find a place where you can be present. Allow yourself to be settled and untethered. And when you found that shape, allow your breath to be effortless and just rest. And as always, if you would like to stay in your Shavasana or your seated meditation a little bit longer, I invite you to hit the pause button and stay as long as you need. But if you are ready, invite a deeper breath in. And bring some gentle movement back into your body, starting at your fingers and your toes. And just letting that movement expand and radiate throughout. And draw your knees into your chest, roll to one side or the other, and make your way up to a seat. When you are seated, draw your hands at your heart center in Anjali Mudra. And bow your head down towards yourself, acknowledging your effort, your energy, giving yourself gratitude for showing up for yourself today. Thank you so much for sharing your practice. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody, today. If you enjoyed this video, I invite you to hit the like button and also leave a comment down below. And if you are brand new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications when new videos come out. If you know anybody that could use more yoga in their life, I invite you to share this video as well as my channel with them. And I will see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day. Bye.